So we're all aware of the Truman Capote style of writing when he took nonfiction incidents and elements and filled in the blanks. Now, when Peter Brown did his book on the Beatles, called The Love You Make, an Insider Story of the Beatles with Stephen Gaines, he was a close confidant of the Beatles for a number of years, but his nonfiction observations, some were speculation, some were out and out, not say fabrications, but extensions of the truth. I've read the book and I can tell you I'm still on the fence. If half the stuff he says is true, then half the stuff he said could have been 100% true or 70% true or 60% true. Anyway, The Love You Make, an insider story of the Beatles, is coming back into prominence in recent weeks since it was announced that to Peter Jackson Get Back, Let It Be sessions, there's going to be a heavy documentary. Now, this is a 1983 book. It's been republished several times over the years, again by Peter Brown and Gaines. Now, Brown was the personal assistant to the Beatles manager Brian Epstein, a senior executive at Apple Corp., as well as the best man to John Lennon at the latter's wedding to Yoko Ono in March '69. Now, in a 1983 interview, Peter Brown said that during the period after Lennon's death, and having turned down all previous officers' shares recollections of the Beatles, he had decided to start writing a book in 1979 because of the many inaccurate accounts that had been published. He said he contacted the 4 former band members that year, and that they each agreed it was a good idea to do a definite book once and for all and get it out there. Then we could forget about it. Now, Love You Make covers the period from the Beatles' teenage years through Beatlemania and the group's breakup until after Lennon's murder at the Dakota in December 1990. A large portion of the text is devoted to Lennon and Epstein, particularly to the latter's homosexuality. Brown presents an at times unflattering picture of the individual Beatles. He depicts Lennon as lacking in kindness, belittles George Harrison's quest for spiritual enlightenment, and portrays Paul McCartney as self-serving and insincere. Now, he didn't attack Ringo much in the book, besides the fact he's just Ringo. In his overview of the most popular books about the group, in The Rough Guide to the Beatles, Chris Ingham writes that Brown's account focuses on the seamier side of the Beatles story and was viewed as being nothing short of betrayal by the surviving former band members. But how much was the truth or a betrayal? Because sometimes the truth is betrayal. Now, The Love You Make was published in the United States in February 1983. Late in January of that year, as a result of Brown's revelation, the British tabloid The Sun eventually published an article about McCartney having fathered an illegitimate child in 1964, a story about which the press had long been aware but had previously lacked corroboration. After Brown sent a copy of his book to Paul and Linda McCartney, the couple ceremoniously burnt it, with Linda photographing the event. Now, according to author and critic Kenneth Womack, the book attracted considerable controversy due to his unvarnished gossip-laden narrative about the Beatles' private lives, a reaction that he likens to that created by Albert Goldman's hack job, The Lives of John Lennon. Now, Beatles fans took to calling Brown's book The Muck You Rake. Its accuracy has been challenged by another former Beatles insider, Ken Mansfield, in his 2000 memoir, The Beatles, the Bible, and Bodega Bay. Now, The Love You Make was reissued in 2002 by the New American Library, with minor revisions and a foreword by Rolling Stone journalist Anthony DeCurtis. Now, speaking New York Magazine, Brown explained his decision to republish, saying he had a read review of the Beatles anthology book that mentioned other Beatle books and not mine, and I got pissed off. In a contemporary review, People magazine described the book as fabulous, revolting, and depressing by turns, and hard to ignore. Now, saying that it ranks in breadth, if not malodorous spirit, with Goldman's 81 biography of Elvis Presley, called Elvis. The reviewer concluded, The Love You Make is about an entire generation's loss of innocence. The Beatles lost theirs years ago, and their fans, at least those who believe Brown and Gaines' version of events, can lose theirs now. Now, Kirkus Reviews considered the book long and focused, and written in a sleazy, faceless journalese, adding, throughout the preoccupations with the Beatles' private lives, including women and drugs, with the neurotic miseries of homosexual manager Brian Epstein, and with business deal the music is secondary at best. The writer concluded, the attempts at psychological insight are hackneyed, the tone is alternately muckraking and plaudulous, so though some readers will appreciate the petty anecdotes and tacky details here, most will want to stick with Philip Norman's shout. Now, New Yorker journalist Mike Hertzgaard described The Love You Make as a kiss-and-tell recounting of the Beatles' story, although he noted that the author's claims regarding an alleged long-standing homosexual relationship between Epstein and Lennon were less salacious and sweeping than Goldman's later statements in The Lives of John Lennon. Now, Publishers Weekly welcomed the 2002 reissue, saying that Brown recreates the well-known saga of Beatlemania, but does it dispassionately enough to make it interesting. While noting that much of the content has been pretty familiar, the reviewer admired it as a dramatically good story, and Brown catches up us with the headiness of it all. Now, authors Stuart Shea and Robert Rodriguez criticized Brown for the inaccuracy of his account, which included recollections of episodes he could not possibly have been privy to, and for exaggerating his importance in Beatles history. According to Shea and Rodriguez, the former Beatles aide and his co-author were clearly more interested in selling books than presenting a balanced, accurate portrait. Brown certainly would have not dared to present such salacious pap in John Lennon's lifetime and market it as an insider story. Chris Ingmans similarly considers that Lennon and Epstein would undoubtedly had felt let down by Brown's book. Now, here's the deal about the book. If you're a fan of The Who, do you know the Who's press agents? No. If you're a fan of Rolling Stones, do you know their childhood girlfriends? No. Every piece of information about the Beatles, from the Merseyside, the Fates, all the music shows he played on as kids, up until he broke up in 1970-71, has been chronicled to death. Everything that the Beatles did, and the people surrounding them. There's books just on the songs and the background of different songs, or who they wrote about and how they wrote about it. There was no privacy with the Beatles. Now, I read this book, and like I said, I know most of the bare facts of the Beatles through the years, because I'm a journalist. I like third or fourth or fifth, background information. But the book itself, some of the allegations. See, this is my theory about Brian Epstein and John Lennon. Okay, this is my theory. This is where I find a Booker problem. How could John Lennon be fucking Brian Epstein, where he's fucking everybody else? He claimed to Cynthia he slept with about 2,000 women. He had, a whole bunch of affairs, including Joan Baez. Where did he find the time to sleep with Joan Baez? That was a shock to me. So where's John Lennon going to have time for a homosexual that's approximately, he's getting his rough trade. Epstein, like John Lennon, like all the Beatles, gay men sometimes look like pretty boys, right? But in this case, he fell in love with John Lennon because he was into rough trade. He thought John Lennon was going to be his lover and beat him up and they could get off together. It never occurred. They only had one incident that Pete Shotner talked about, and again, Brian jerked him off, and he felt sorry for Epstein. And I know for a fact that homosexuals in the 1960s and 70s were getting more and more control of entertainment. And that's a common thing. The casting couch in the 50s as well. So, did John Lennon have like what they call a gay affair with Epstein for 5 years? Why would Epstein kill himself? Because he hated himself. He would have, if Lennon was as close of a lover as the book states or whatever, he would say, well, why kill yourself? We're not together anymore, but I treasure you as a friend. We're not having sex anymore, blah, blah, blah. But here's the deal. Where did Lennon have time to do exactly what's said in his book and the Goldman book? Where is he going to find time? Because he was too busy chasing women. You go on tour, sleep with a bunch of women, write about it, and sell 1 million records. I don't think Brian was heavy on his radar, because they were leaving Brian behind more and more and more, because Brian was all about touring. He loved the tour. That was the big part of it, right? His boys, as we call it. So anyway, I'm sorry to get on a pulpit here, but this is kind of a book review. I read the book first, again, 37 years ago, and I said to myself, Jesus Christ, You know, I mean, where's the lawsuits out of this? I was expecting a bunch of lawsuits. But the problem was, Paul McCartney and everybody else were too busy with their career. Ringo still had a career. George was semi-retired before he made a comeback in the late 80s. But every Beatles book, there's going to be errors because you weren't there, right? Ringo Starr has never really done a first-person book, has he? To the level that he should. He's talked in portions like anthology. But one thing about the Beatles, they were very business savvy. If there was money to be made promoting a homosexual relationship between John Lennon and Brian Epstein while John was still alive, he probably would have done it. You know what I'm saying? It was just basically the manager's in love with me and we're on vacation together and I was drunk and I let him jerk me off. That's about it. That's as far it goes. And I've been covering the Beatles and entertainment for 38 years, and I can tell you, there should be more signs of this, right? Freddie Mercury died because he had one too many sailors. He liked gay men. He liked a lot of gay men. That's why he died, right? Elton John hated himself. That's why he tried to commit suicide. He found a good Canadian boy. He settled down, right? Everybody is different. Look at David Bowie. Mick Jagger. Homosexuality was around in the 60s and 70s in music in all different forms and shapes. Look at Richard Pryor, right? So you're telling me that this is kept hid. Only he knows about that. Somebody would have spoke up. Cynthia would have spoke up, right? Yoko Ono would have spoke up. You know, Brian Epstein was calling late at night and said, John, I want to talk to you. You know, I don't know. Anyway, that's the latest on our Beatles, history on our channel. If you like what we're doing here, give us a like, comment, and subscribe. But again, like I said, I was born in the key year of the Beatles, 1965. And even my dad said there's nothing to it. And my dad never lied to me about the Beatles. Thanks for listening. Bye.